Hello, my name is Billy Moss, and I'm the host of Color Conversations. Welcome to Color Conversations, where this show is going to be talking about different issues that have to do with race and ethnicity, culture, politics, and how it all works together in our society here in America. So I have with me today a dear friend of mine, Alicia Figueras. How are you, Alicia?
I'm on top of the world, Billy. And it's been a while. I've gotten married. I have a new name.
Oh, that's right. Alicia Figueras-Lambert. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Gotta mention my man's in the house. Absolutely.
Yes.
So thank you for being with Color Conversations today. You and I have talked a lot about issues of race and ethnicity and culture throughout our years knowing each other. And I think today there's even more to discuss.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put together this show, so that people have an opportunity to discuss some of the more, maybe even taboo, issues of race and culture and ethnicity in our society, and get some of the conversations really going on issues of color, even across, racial and ethnic boundaries. So thank you, the audience, for being here today, and thank you, Alicia, for being here today
This
as well.
is brilliant. I'm so glad that you're doing this.
Well, thank you, thank you. So one of the conversations that we wanted to talk about was the Black experience, or the dark skin experience, in some of these nail salons and that kind of stuff that's been going on, right?
Good topic.
There's been a lot of talk about what happened in terms of the violent activity when there was a discrepancy around, the service that was given to a person of color.
Right.
And so it was like an Asian, shop that was
about
doing
a month
nail
and a half
salon.
ago.
What are
in
your
the
thoughts
Bronx.
on that?
Oh, it was terrible.
And what do you think the general kind of outcry is in the general public?
The outcry is definitely for us to support each other, the Black and brown communities, because it's unfortunate, it's a real issue, a real fact that the opposite, or the Asian community, or our white population do not support us. Well, I want to speak specifically about the Asian population in regards to the nail salons.
Right.
When you go there, for example, to ask them for support for a particular fundraiser, they don't support. They look at you like you have two heads. All of a sudden they don't speak English. They don't understand what you're saying. And we constantly pour our dollars into these facilities, and it's just not fair. It's not reciprocated, and we're not supported. And we need to be aware of this reality and learn how to support Black and brown-owned businesses so that we can filter that money back into our communities.
So where is the breakdown? Is the breakdown in the Asian culture not understanding maybe the American culture and what it means to be a part of the American fabric of society? Is it the dark-skinned African-American or Afro-Latinos who go into these establishments and don't speak up? Aren't communicating that message strongly enough? I mean, it seems to be like an overall kind of breakdown where there's a lot of misunderstanding going on for it to get to the point where violence is happening, over $5.
Right.
So the big question is, what are your thoughts on that? Like, where do you think it's coming from?
I think it's all of the above. And in order to circumvent this issue, we need to have more of a demand and more supply of Black and brown owned facilities that we can patronize. And they're coming slowly but surely, but there aren't enough.
So my thought is, maybe it's because, all right, so the Asians may know like they're the only game in town for the nail salons.
Correct.
So you have Latinos and Blacks who frequent, these ladies and people who want to get their feet done, etc., frequent these shops, right? And there's no other place where they can compete, right, or go to. So the nail salons kind of know we're the only shop in town that does this, so they don't really need to do that extra catering to the population that maybe other industries have to do. Maybe that's part of it?
That's definitely part of it. And they're not going to see the impact until we have our numbers higher, where we're able to go and have an enormous amount of salons to attend. And then they're going to see, wow, there's competition out there. We need to step up our game, change our ways, our attitude, be more altruistic, or pack up and leave.
Right. I definitely can see how competition, would breed quality of service. I mean, that's just true in the United States in general. Whenever you see a more competitive situations, all of a sudden everybody tightens up their game
Right,
and makes
right.
sure that they deliver much more of a quality service to the population, because otherwise they lose a lot of business.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right. As more options show up in Latino and Black communities, we'll see an improvement in the services that all, not just Asians, but I
Right.
think all of the nail salons and stuff like that render.
Now, keep in mind that when we do have enough Black and brown nail salons, for example, we're still going to need a whole lot more time to get our game up there, because keep in mind, they have been doing this for years.
Okay.
And they are really good at their craft.
Yes, I'm sure.
Right?
Right.
So it's going to take some time to really perfect what we're doing. And I commend those Black and brown owned businesses that are really coming out there and opening up salons for us to utilize.
Right.
So I applaud them, and I will be using them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that, we take certainly quality, number one, in my opinion, into consideration, but also the interaction and the treatment that you get with that quality. Because if the treatment and the interaction is not up to par, and you are being treated subhuman or sub-American,
Right.
then maybe that's not the place for you to be. And I think that also needs to speak very loudly for darker skinned people, that we have to think so highly of ourselves that we make sure that we demand high service.
That's right.
In all establishments. And I think that would make a big difference in the way that we're treated too.
And Billy, with the tables being turned, yes, so suppose we do have enough Black and brown owned businesses to patronize. Those establishments need to have really good, healthy business ethics, because I cannot tell you how many experiences I've had where I go into a Black establishment and the customer service is very, very poor. They have a sense of entitlement, and it's just, I don't feel like I'm special or I'm the customer anymore. So I think we all need to be educated on good business ethics.
Right. I certainly can agree with you on that, and I've seen some of those businesses go out of business.
That's right.
Because of that. And that's sad when that happens, because certainly they were giving a good enough product that they were open to begin with. But I think the customer service side is, like I was saying with the nail salons, it's really important.
It's key.
Yeah, it really is key to survival. And that's certainly true for not just brown and Black businesses, but for all businesses, right? Yeah. I also wanted to talk to you about what you think of this word Afro-Latino. Because I know you use a word in Spanish. Can you tell?
Boricua?
No. Piel
Oh, piel canela.
canela.
Oh, that
So-
means brown skin.
Right. So that's what you say in Spanish, but on YouTube and on Facebook and Instagram, a lot of people are using the term Afro-Latino. What do you think about that term? Your opinion?
It's good. It's healthy. That's what I am. I personally have a reason why I'm so passionate about piel canela, because being a dark-skinned Latina, I'm always approached and asked, "You speak Spanish?" People always surprised when I speak Spanish,
Right.
and I cannot believe the level of ignorance, because I mean, you have big-time entertainers, Celia Cruz, Johnny Ventura, who are darker than I, that were very well known in the Latino communities. Why would you be surprised that I speak Spanish? Not all Latinos are white-skinned or olive-skinned individuals.
Right. Well, I think, like anything else, there are stereotypes, right? And here in the United States, the vast majority of Latinos who are here are Caucasian or light-skinned, right, Latinos. And so I think that is a big part of it. It's just a numbers issue. But there is, like you said, there's also an issue of, being cultured.
Yes.
And understanding the tapestry that makes up our country, and having this sensitivity and the sensibility, not to make an assumption about a person just based on how they look, and so we eventually do need to get there, I think, as a country, where people
We do.
really pause before they make some of these assumptions and check their stereotypes and their prejudices at the door before they make a decision.
I use it often to my benefit. Oftentimes I'm in circles where they're speaking Spanish and they don't know that I understand them.
Right,
I mean, I know
right.
you get that. You speak Spanish, Billy.
That's right. I get that all the time, actually. So,
I bet. I bet.
Yep. It's very interesting conversation.
Yeah. So I started a group called Piel Canela.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and
Okay.
we're going to be actually having a salsa dance pretty soon. And it's, the purpose is to bring the Piel Canelas together, to support each other, and to know that that we are there is strength in numbers, and to educate others that yes, we are dark, and yes, we are Latina or Latino.
Right. And honestly, that there's pride in, right?
Absolutely.
There's pride in that as well. And I think that that's also true for the Black community. You know, there, like you mentioned, there are stereotypes that unfortunately the Black community has inherited because of our reality. Our reality is that we didn't inherit the knowledge of how to do all this stuff. And for the few people who survived slavery, survived Reconstruction, survived segregation, and were doing something with their lives, what happened? Their establishments were burnt down, you know, like Black Wall Street, or their churches were burnt down, like we've seen throughout the decades here in the United States, or gunmen went in and shot up parishioners. You know, our history is really intense and dense when it comes to violence against African Americans in this country, and unfortunately it hasn't stopped with vigilantes like that. You know, the government through the police department and the criminal justice system has also in part been, you know, part of that. And you see what's happening in, you know, the news as well as online, where individuals are just, they're done. They're speaking out and they want to see some change. Question for you, as someone who is Afro-Latino, or Afro-Latina, have you had any circumstances in your family where they have had interactions that were not so positive with government?
No.
No. Okay.
No, because my family's from Puerto Rico. Although when I was growing up, when my father got drunk, he always said that he's Dominican because when his mother was pregnant with him, Trujillo warned them to leave the country within 24 hours or they were going to get shot. And so she panicked and went into labor. Ahí mismo, she had the baby right there on the ground. And so when he's drinking, he's, yo soy dominicano, I'm Dominican, but we're from Puerto Rico. No, we haven't had that threat or that issue.
Because a lot of times, especially young men in public schools, have issues. You know, in our country, the statistics are very, very real. You know, Black boys, Latino boys are often suspended and disciplined at double the rate of their male, and way more than that of their female peers. And so that's one of the reasons why President Obama issued the My Brother's Keeper initiative.
Great.
So, right, and I think New York was one of the first states to sign onto it and take the millions of dollars to actually solve that issue, right? And so you have communities across New York State that are putting programs into place to offset the high suspension rates amongst Black and Latino boys especially, but really all children. I mean, I think, you know, some of the zero tolerance, you know, from the 90s and 2000s has gone just a little bit too far. We're suspending students way too much.
Big time.
Which is a separation from their instruction. And anytime we separate students from their instruction, that's a negative thing, right? I mean, everybody can understand that. And it's something that, quite frankly, the taxpayers are paying double for. So when we suspend somebody from school, the taxpayers don't only pay for the empty seat that the teacher's teaching and no one's there learning.
Right.
But we also, the taxpayers are also paying for the additional instruction that has to go home to the student who's suspended for 5 days or expelled from school. So it's a lot, there's a lot to it. There's a lot that, you know, the least of these, as the Bible speaks about, is, you know, those who are least thought of in our society. It always kind of, what happens to them is an indicator of things that are not right in general.
That's right. That's right.
So we see Black boys, Latino boys who are suspended at high rates, have lower grades, et cetera, higher dropout rates. And so that's an indicator because their lives are not buffered by money or privilege. So when you can look at that population and know something's wrong with your system. And I think that Obama, you know, put money into My Brother's Keeper for educators across the country to start thinking about what's wrong and how we can create new programs and new policies that are not just good for boys of color, but that alleviate that issue, thus alleviating everyone's issues. And I think it was a brilliant investment.
It was.
Into society.
It sure was.
Yeah, yeah. But so you had no boys of color who had issues in school. That's really surprising because most do.
Yeah, no.
Your nephews were great.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear.
They had other issues, but not those.
That's interesting. But you never know. Sometimes.
Yes, I know.
You never know.
Yeah, you never. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. With what's transpired, recently with Colin Kaepernick. And,
isn't that awesome?
Well, I mean, yes and no, right? I mean,
Well, I think it's awesome.
here we have another situation where someone who is an African American male sitting in a situation, ostracized, demonized, just like so many black boys in school, Latinos in school. So here he is, ostracized, demonized, and almost like My Brother's Keeper, Nike had to come in.
Right.
Right. And say, no, we're not going to tolerate that, and we're just going to take this in another direction. And so many people followed. What do you think? Why do you think that happened?
Support. I thought it was beautiful, and Ford has jumped on the bandwagon.
That's right.
And there are going to be more to come. Trust and believe. I think it's a beautiful thing. My hat goes off to Kaepernick. It's a great thing.
Right. I mean, do you feel that he is capitalizing too much on his political stance?
No, not at all. I think it was a natural flow. He started something and he's finishing it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one, especially since, I mean, he doesn't have an NFL job, so you might as well supplement
that dude has got to do, right?
any way that you can. I think people are supportive of that.
Yes.
That here's someone who took a stand and he lost his position based on his principles. And
good for him.
And I don't think that as a principle is something that people can accept. Your beliefs should not have that. Your beliefs that are really positive beliefs should not have that kind of impact in your private sector, in your employment. Imagine if all of us were afraid to be active in our communities or to take stances because we believe the next day that our jobs were going to be jeopardized.
Well, there are so many of us who are afraid.
Yeah. And Colin really, what happened to him is kind of jarring. It makes you realize that there's almost like a dictatorship spirit in our country, and I'm very proud of him for standing up.
So am I.
And being willing to take the hit to teach us all that it's worth it. Because he's showing like it's worth it.
Yeah.
In the end, you have to be yourself. You have to do what you believe is right, and you have to be strong about your beliefs in order to reap the benefits and the prize at the end. And quite honestly, this is going to be a prize that's for everybody. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Kaepernick.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah.
In regards to standing up for what you believe in, what is your opinion about what happened over the weekend with Serena?
Wow. That was,
from a man's point of view.
From a man's point of view, that was really telling because there were ways that I felt that her word was not taken seriously. And, I think that it had to do some with gender. And that she was really doing things that men have done in on the other side of the sport without penalty.
Right.
So the fact that she was getting penalized for it just seemed like it was going a little too far.
$17,000?
Was $17,000 is what she was charged. That's crazy to me. It really is crazy. And, it is analogous. That gender, and it's analogous to what happens in race, where people are guilty before they're proven innocent, and especially black men, and so I was disappointed to see that to see and feel that she was being treated harsher than her male counterparts.
Yeah, that was so disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that the whole issue between her and the coach or the referee just took away the shine of the winner. I felt
It sure did.
I felt so bad for her.
It sure did. So, but I think Serena, she was very graceful under fire.
Yeah.
I think she did the perfect kind of balance between firm and friendly, between, being strong and loving.
Yeah.
I think that she really balanced it very well. And given the heightened circumstances and the emotions and the adrenaline and everything that had to be in the air, right? I think she did a phenomenal job of mastering that moment for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kudos to her. That was like one of the most graceful losses I think I've ever seen.
Right?
Yeah, I really do. So kudos to Serena, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping is that this, the color conversations will continue to morph. I would love to see people from different races and ethnicities at this table. Not to be, tokenistic or anything like that, but it would be great to have, a white person, a black person, a Latino person, Asian, Native American, something like that.
Nice.
Sitting at this table and really kind of duking out and talking about the different circumstances going on in our day. I think that's kind of an overdue table. And really like having different points of view. Some conservative, some liberal, some progressive, some Tea Party. Just putting it all in there. And
that's a hot topic.
It really is.
Politics is a hot topic.
Yeah, and see where it goes, because there are different types of people of every race and every culture, and that's the whole point, right? Is that you can't stereotype. You've got to get to know the person, and everybody's not the same, and certainly in 2018.
That's right. Oh,
we're not all the same, and everybody's different, and their backgrounds are different.
And Billy, there are more and more people. This country is becoming brown.
Why do you say that?
Because of all the interracial relationships.
Yeah, there's a lot of interracial relationships.
Becoming very, very brown.
Yeah. It's interesting to, I'm what I would call bicultural, right? My mom is from Belize. My dad is African American, God rest his soul. So, many people on both sides of the fence are often surprised to hear that I'm the other, or half of the other, right? I don't know if you experience that in your life.
Yes.
But I certainly do experience it in mine. So I'll be in like Caribbean circles, and I'll hear somebody say something negative about black people in America. And I'll have to step in and say something, and let them know, well, this black person in America went to Harvard University. And I think I'm doing okay.
Yes.
But, and then also, I'll be in an African-American setting, or, and somebody will say something about Catholics. And I'll be like, well, that's funny, because I'm Catholic, All Catholics aren't going to hell. I don't think so, anyway. You invited me here. So, that kind of, it's very interesting to be also not just, with race, but with culture, have to navigate different circumstances that could be uncomfortable, because people still have their stereotypes.
Yes.
Even within.
They were raised
the black
learning
community.
these stereotypes, Billy.
Yeah.
It's in their blood, and
And it's, in this day and age, it's sad.
it is very sad.
It's sad because certainly a person should be judged based on the content of their character and not the color of their skin, and that's really where we stand. We're 50 years out from when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and I don't believe that statement is a reality yet.
I agree.
I really don't. In this fast-paced culture, I almost feel like it's gotten worse, because everything is very, immediate gratification, and people want things very quickly, and they want things fast, and so people make these assumptions, and they follow through with these assumptions, and sometimes you see them really putting egg on their face, right? Because they're moving so quickly.
What do you attribute that to?
I think technology and us not having sincere conversations about morality and technology in our society, and how, we have to operate. Unfortunately, tragedy is what dictates a lot of times how society shifts in its moral codes. So, we have to have an 11-year-old send a picture of their genitals out for a law to be passed about sexting. We could have seen that coming, right?
Right.
Before we had to draw that moral line. But, it's that kind of stuff that we really need to have conversations about to, have like moral cues and moral expectations and about the use of technology. Like people today, they feel like they can contact you at any time, and
Billy,
there's
I was
this
just
expectation that why didn't you answer me 5 minutes ago?
right,
and
right.
stuff like that.
I was just gonna say, I'm so glad that you created this show because conversations are so crucial.
Right.
We're communicating too much with our cell phones by texting, emailing. There's no old school eye to eye, touchy, feely contact anymore.
Yeah.
People don't have time, and you're right, because technology. And our children are being raised in that environment, and we have to go back to old school. When I was bringing my daughter up every Friday, I don't care what was going on in school, had to be family night. We had to sit down and eat dinner at least once a week. In my household today, every night it's at the table.
Wow.
Family time is important.
That's great.
And communicating.
No, I agree with you. I think that families definitely should be doing that. But I have to tell you, as someone who has everybody's flying around in my house, it's difficult.
You got to make it a priority.
It's difficult. It really is. Yeah, you're right. It needs to be a priority. Absolutely. But I can empathize with families that have the soccer practice and have the PTA meeting and have the sport, whatever it is. I can empathize with it because it's just a lot.
Right.
And you're trying to do what's best for your kids, but then there's these commitments that pull you.
And learning how to say no.
Well, that's true. That's true. Absolutely right. But on the issue of color, it becomes that's just another thing that people have to think about, and they don't want to. They're stressed. They don't want to have to think about white folks don't want to have to think about white privilege. Black folks don't want to have to think about slavery. People just want to put it out of their mind and pretend that this is not having an impact, when it really is. It really does have an impact. It has had an impact, and ignoring it is kind of like. It's kind of like trying to, ignore some kind of abuse that has happened in your life.
Denial.
Just deny it and it's going to go away. Yeah, as soon as you get into a relationship, all those issues pop
Surface,
back up. Except when it's an issue of race, it's just life. It's just life. Right? So we can't really run away from issues of race in this country. It's not going to happen. And it's funny because when I was at Harvard, Al Gore said that one of the biggest issues of the 21st century is going to be race. And this was back in the late 90s. And I as a young man in my teens, I said, how is that possible? This is the 90s. The Clintons were in, the presidency. I was like, I don't get it. How is that possible that race is going to be the major issue of the 21st century? But now it's like clear and evident. It's here, and I understand now why he was saying what he was saying, because as a result of the 1980s, 1970s, 80s, a little bit of the 90s.
Free love.
No, there was a lot of racial issues going on.
I didn't see. I was overseas. I didn't see.
You were overseas. Okay. There was riots in school. There were issues with gangs going at each other. Yeah, I would say that there were some issues in the 80s.
Wow, I missed it.
In the late 70s, 80s, definitely 90s. Sure. Yeah, a lot of tensions, especially where there was even mixes of all the races. Sure. Yeah. And so that occupied a lot of energy. Right? When you're fighting and you're suffering and you're panting and you're trying to renew yourself, you don't have time to advance yourself. You don't have the energy to advance yourself or consider the issues with reflection and hindsight. You're in the middle. You're just struggling, right? You're in a fight. So it's really now, post-Obama, I would say, where you have people actually reflecting on their financial circumstance and just their, life circumstance. And really saying, wait a second here. I was not afforded the same opportunities as other people were afforded because I came from a different family background. And I think that's going to have an impact on the conversation about possibly like reparations in this country. I think that's going to be pretty major for African Americans as well as Afro-Latinos. People who, when you look at their birth certificate, if it says black, I think it's going to have a major impact on those conversations, because the reality is that anything that's slavery or segregation took away from us big time. And for those people who have ancestors who were adults during times of slavery or segregation, there's no doubt that those descendants' lives were changed forever.
That's so true.
Yeah. So I think that once that conversation starts to happen about the ills of the past and real conversations about how long it was and what actually transpired, we'll be able to have hopefully a more heartfelt conversation about how to repair that in this country so that we can finally move forward.
Do you blame any of this on the administration, our leadership?
That these conversations are coming up now? Or I don't know if I would say blame. I think that his actions are surfacing a lot of emotions in people, and certainly are guiding some folks to reveal the principles that they have within when it comes to racial superiority. And then, all of us are kind of having a reaction to that. Those of us who are seeing, that rear its ugly head here in our society. Like I said, when I was listening to Al Gore make a speech, I never thought that race would be the number one issue of the 21st century. But here it is in present day. And
he even spoke about global warming, and nobody wanted to believe
yeah,
him.
he spoke about global warming too. He sure did. So God bless Al Gore for trying to be, the prophet in his own land.
Yep, that's right.
And just like the Bible says, he was not really listened to.
Yeah,
he was not really listened to. So that's really interesting that it came out like that, because I certainly remember a time when October was a lot colder.
Yes.
In the northern hemisphere.
Yes. Halloween
Was freezing. October, homecoming games and stuff like that were freezing. You could see your breath in the air.
Yes.
And on Long Island, those days are gone.
Yeah.
It's like really warm in October now. And I'm just like, wait a second. Maybe that global warming was kind of right. I don't know. But, all right, so I think it's time to close this out of our conversation. But Elisa, I just want to thank you again for being here.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
On our first episode of Color Conversations. And hopefully you'll join us again soon. Thanks again for being with us.